probably would agree with me in counseling people. I've noticed that usually when you start counseling people who have married for 10 years above, what you're trying to do is damage control. And a lot of times you have to use scotch tape, sellotape, super glue, and often it breaks. And unfortunately, there was a family I've been working with for 17 years that just split up 2 weeks ago. And so we have to have a response. And that response is not just in preaching and teaching, it's in being the example. So that's why I thought prevention is better than cure.
That's right, absolutely.
So back to Eden. We're looking at the blueprint, God's blueprint. Blueprint, when we look at DNA is the blueprint of life. So it tells how tall you will be, how fast you metabolize cake, or how slowly you metabolize it. It tells everything. And that's what your active cell forming mechanisms work on to produce you. So everything in life responds to information. Everything in life responds to words. And so when God talks about his word, he's not just talking about the audio, he's talking about the program. He's talking about his program for how everything ought to exist. And there's a program for marriage. And that's what I want us to interact with today. So that's why it's important that we're all people who are spirit beings. So they're going to interact with what's being shared with your spirit. You get me?
Yeah.
With your spirit. Because if you interact with your mind, it's very slow. If you interact with your spirit, you get faster gigabytes of download. So the word is spirit. So when you see it in the spirit, you can become it. If you have not seen that image, you cannot become it. So God said to Adam, he said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. How many of you remember that scripture? Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it. He spoke to one man. Okay? And it's interesting to note that God did not deliver the whole world to the church. He delivered the whole world to a family. So the task of making the world become as heaven was not given to a superpower ministry, a super anointed man of God or woman of God. It was given to a family. A family eating fruit, like Sho was eating fruit the other time. A family. Think about it. So in God's mind, transformation of the world comes through the family system. In our own warped minds as believers, it comes through church, as I like to call it. Now, but God's plan was that the family becomes the vehicle through which new human seeds are released and are apprenticed to then extend the dominion through families. You get the idea? So the family is central to God's government. The family is central to God's operation. So the reason why I'm talking about oneness is that you cannot achieve whatever God wants you to achieve except the family is functioning fully. Have we realized that we have so many more Christians in the world today than any time in history? So whatever people think that's happening to the church, I don't really care, because the church wasn't set up by God anyway. But let's look in the spirit and look at people who have been saved. So we actually have more saved people in the world now than there ever was at any time in history. So how come the world is not changing? Does that make sense? So 120 people change the whole world. How come that these billions of Christians can't change the world? It's because the impact of the gospel has not distilled to the level of family yet. So that means you can be in church and be very nice and sanctimonious and get home and slap your wife. You get the idea? So that religion, we only have it in church. It doesn't affect our life. It doesn't affect that basic unit of God's government. So at home, Babylon rules, in church, God rules. You get the idea? So it's to bring the kingdom to the home. That's how we can begin to see God's kingdom come fully. It's the reason why the strategy of discipleship in book of Acts was to bring people from house to house, break them down. Does that make sense? So that each man can be trained to be Christ-like, and each woman can be trained to be ecclesia-like. You get the idea? That's what Paul was trying to teach. So if the man represents Christ, the woman represents the ecclesia, and they become a full functioning unit, then they have the ability to fulfill God's desires. Just the same way that Christ can do nothing on earth except his ecclesia responds. The same way the family cannot be productive except you are delivering that same template, that same blueprint. If the men can be like Christ and the women can be like the ecclesia, and they're functioning in perfect synergy, Christ, ecclesia like synergy, there's no dominion. So that's why oneness is important before we talk about dominion. Many families like to like the concept of dominion, but they are trying to achieve without oneness. Often when people want to get married, I hear this a lot. Say, Pastor, this thing you are teaching about submission, it's hard though. I said, it's not supposed to be hard. That's how you are created to function. So if it's hard, there's a wrong software running in your brain. Let's uproot it and let's reprogram your brain. You know, and then another one, someone will say, oh, Pastor, that means you're asking me to give up my own dreams for his own. I said, okay. When you come to marriage, there's no my own, his own.
Exactly.
There's God's own. That's right. And then both of you must find it and do it. And he has a role to lead it, you have a role to support it. So some of those ideas is what fights against the synergy of the marriage. To understand why oneness is important, God spoke to Adam. So let's imagine that this their brother here is called Adam. God said to him, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it. And then he said, yeah, yes, Lord, I'll do it. And he starts his work. So mandate's upon him, anointing is upon him, everything's on him. And then God says, I don't like the fact that he's walking alone. He has only a top-level relationship. He needs peer-level sort of companionship and fellowship so that we can replicate what we have in heaven. So God splits him in two. Yeah? So that he then becomes two complementary parts. But he then has to be wise, to become one. So the oneness is not automatic. It says, so shall the man shall leave his father and mother and become. Become means a process of oneness. But many people think that just by staying together, you stick together. No. No. You have to sit with it and become one flesh. You have to send one artery at a time, one nerve at a time, one vein at a time, one bone at a time, one flesh at a time, and over time let it heal. And we can talk a lot about that maybe when we have discussions about how that happens. I've used the analogy of limb reattachment surgery to describe that once. How many of you have had that? Limb reattachment? Okay. Remind me if I have time. Because I know she starts to tell me that I'm using all my time. So it's important we understand oneness from the perspective of Godhead, which has relational and functional synergy. So man was made in his image and likeness. So, and he expects us to function like him because he defines the blueprint. Before I talk about relational and functional synergy, let me talk a bit more about Adam and Eve, two complementary parts. They were supposed to relate spirit to spirit, soul to soul, body to body, expressly. Does that make sense? But they were supposed to actively work at it in love, in faith, in wisdom, in purpose, every single day. But it was easy for them because there was revelation. They had contact with God, they could see everything. So that's why Adam would look at Eve and said, this is the bone of my bone, and this is the flesh of my flesh. And I don't know whether he had X-ray vision, but how do you see a woman's bone? But guess what we see first? This is the flesh of my bone. Let me find out if it's the bone. This is the flesh of my flesh. Let me find out if it is bone. Does that make sense? So we see flesh first. So this one is great. God yours. They will now try to say, what does she contain? They will now say, this person doesn't have bone. They will have to pretend that it has bone. We now hold it up with a hanger and say, well, but Pastor, see, he has bone. Someone called me a few days ago and said, Pastor, I just want to ask you, I'm not sure, I don't want to be judging. But there's a man that I want to marry. And he's come to me. So I've not made a decision, no, but he drinks. And he couldn't, his last relationship as of 6 months ago, he was still having sex with his girlfriend. What do you think? I said, marry him. Yeah, because of some people, that's how to. If you tell him don't marry, they say, no, but I want them. I said, no, marry him. I said, but this is what your end will be like. I said, he will not change. I said, he will not change. When you marry, he will be sleeping with other people. And he will always be drunk. I said, you are trying to employ him for work now. And he has shown you his credentials. And he will deliver.
That's really good.
Amen? And I think it worked. I think she got some sense. You know? So, Adam was able to see bone before flesh. Bone of my bone was saying at a very deep value set purpose level. We're one. I can see that we're compatible. And then when I look at the peripheral issues also, we can actually work together. You understand? So it's important that we are able to have that kind of understanding to guide our relationship. In most relationships, why do most relationships fail? It's because often we do it body, soul, spirit, instead of spirit, soul, body. Yeah? So the order is supposed to be spirit, soul, but then by spirit I don't mean you're talking tongues every morning, that just shakataka, lakataka, that's not what I mean. I mean that your reckoning of life, perspective, is based on God's truth. That's what it means to be spiritual. Spiritual person is someone who by reason of use has exercised the sense of discernment between good and evil, isn't it?
Yeah.
So spirituality is not the airy-fairy superpowers that we're talking about. Spirituality just means you have discernment, you can see things from God's perspective. Because if you are not spiritual, you can't. You will only see from the flesh perspective, from the sense perspective. So if both of you can attain that level, or agree that that's how you want to work it, you'll have a different kind of marriage. Now, but if you can't do that, you have the kind of marriage I call buy one, get one free marriage. You sell them in tech school. So and that marriage is just male meets female, male likes female, male and female get together, and they produce other males and females. That's what you have in the world. But in the kingdom, it's different. So God expected that both of them will have relational synergy and functional synergy, because in the first instance, Eve was called to be a helpmeet. Help. Not lover, not mistress, like I usually say, not sex bomb, not cook. Helpmeet. So that means the original reason for which Eve was brought in is for relational and functional synergy. I get my idea. Relational and functional. Can you say relational?
Relational.
Functional.
Functional.
Synergy. Because sometimes some Christians actually get the relational bit, so they have this powerful, we get at ourselves, but they're not functioning properly. Some people get functional synergy and the relationship suffers. It has to be both. So, this relational and functional synergy was transferred to Adam and Eve, and that's what God wanted. That's the only way it can happen. That's why when he sent Jesus Christ also, he sent him as his son, and he created an ecclesia for him. And Jesus Christ, without his ecclesia, can do nothing. Have you realized that? We can say, Lord, come, and he's thinking, I don't have a body except you. Does that make sense? So it's the same thing. He fully depends on his ecclesia, to express him as the ecclesia fully depends on him to lead her. Does that make sense? And that's what God is wanting to transform. And the best way the world can see the glory of God is a fully formed home. Because that's where you see the fullness of Godhead and his creativity manifest. Does that make sense? So when we meet a man, we have not seen the fullness of God. When we meet a woman, we have not seen the fullness of God. When we meet a man and a woman who are married, and we're in perfect spiritual and synergy, we are getting to see God in his fullness. This is my point. So when we begin to manifest that in the home, it's then easy for the world to see who God is through the Christian home. So that's why the home was such a powerful unit of kingdom expression in the book of Acts. So if you wanted to have a contact with Christ, the best place was to go to a home. Because then you see a man representing Christ, a woman, and you see the creativity that have children, you see the nurturing, the discipleship of their own children in the way of the Lord. So you see a lot of what God is in the concept of a home. You can't see that in the church. In the church, all you're going to see is myself preaching and telling you that you're going to go to hell if you don't stop sinning. You know, you don't see the lifestyle, you don't see the ambience. Does that make sense? So that's very important. I know I'm going like a freight train. I don't know how much time do you have it? It's important that you know that oneness is possible, because he will not ask you to do something that is not possible. Does that make sense?
That's right.
So when you say it's hard, shut up. How can it be hard? Do you know more than God? So I'm telling you how you're going to tell others. You know what Paul said is that what you have heard of me amongst many witnesses, commit. Who shall be able to? So that is how the kingdom spreads. It's through discipleship. We discuss an idea and a truth, we practice it, we model it, and we teach it. Does that make sense? So you must understand this, practice it, and let's begin to spread that message. So when people say it's hard, how can you say it's hard? You must know more than God. So can I hear someone say it's easy?
It's easy.
I'm a recreated human spirit. It is easy. So marriage can only work if it's operating in perfect synergy, representing the fullness of God. So your goal must be to cause your marriage to fully represent God's synergy. Don't just settle for some emotional feedbacks. My wife is, she's been cooking well now. I'm very happy with that. Yes, it's good for her to cook well, but look for more. You understand? So a lot of times when you go for a relational event, there's a lot of focus on the physical, how to have great and fantastic sex. If you are spiritual, you have great and fantastic sex anyway, because your desires will be well tuned, to the spirit. You desire what you expect, you will expect what you desire. You see what I mean? But many times we desire what we don't expect, we expect what we don't desire. Does that make sense? Yeah, I said that to confuse you. But you get the idea. Is that when we're tuned in the spirit, everything, there's more harmony, it's more beautiful, if you guys are practicing that. So marriage can only work if it's operating in perfect synergy with God's divine principles. Let's define oneness. Two whole components coming together, relating to one another with knowledge, understanding, and wisdom in light of purpose. Now, that's condensed milk. You have to chew it. Drink some water. Write a poem about it. You say Selah. Then read it again. You meditate it. Two whole components coming together. Whole. Someone say whole.
Whole.
Not two half components. Some people seek marriage. They are missing a limb. I'm missing a rib. And they're thinking marriage will fix them. No. It must be two wholes. Components coming together and relating with knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, with purpose as the end goal. Because if you don't have purpose, then you cast off restraint. If you don't know why a marriage exists, anything goes. But marriage that will work has to have that. One, personal development. You must know what you're supposed to be, what to expect. Number two, you must have understanding, the whys, the what, the hows, and wisdom, and you're aiming towards purpose. So, and you can see an example, the Manchester United team comes together as one team to become a bigger whole. They have different parts, but function to facilitate a particular goal. Make sense? Then related to each other with knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, knowing what the team is there to do, know the big picture, what the unique roles that make the team work, what does success look like on the individual player and team level. Each husband that comes to marriage just to have sex, a woman that just wants to have children, each person comes to marriage with their own single agenda. What does that do? It's harmony. It's like coming into a team, Manchester United, and I want Jose Mourinho to see me, and so I just want to score goals. So I'm not going to pass the ball to anyone. I just want to go and score. The team will lose, I will get sacked. Does that make sense? So that's how marriage is. Many times we come to marriage with personal agenda. Sometimes, because we have this singles ministry, 25, 40 years, we have over, I think, the last count, 350 people who engage from time to time, about 150 who connect more. So we have times with the men and the women separately, just to hear how they're thinking, how they're related to this. And there have been times when I listen to both the men and women, so what are you looking for? And they have a long list of what they expect the woman to be. But it's the women who are worse at it. They have a longer list times 5. He will do this. And there's something I'm wondering. Why can't we just come with what they have to offer?
Oh, that's so good. That's really good.
Whatever I say, I want a man that does this, and does this, and does this. And I'm thinking, I hope you are the kind of woman that deserves that. And vice versa.
That's right.
So we must come to a point where we have defined what we have to offer before we even think of marriage. Unfortunately, well, God just allows us to marry out of mercy, even though we don't know, and hope we catch up along the way. But that's what it must be. You have something to offer. You know what you're offering. So then you then are able to recognize who you're supposed to offer it to. And if he has what, we complement. So if we approach marriage from this perspective, it will give us greater value and God too. All this must be in light of purpose and purpose in time. Understand the fact that you don't have eternity. Adam was an eternal, well, we're all eternal beings too, but your body is mortal. So, and since Methuselah, the age lifespan has greatly increased, greatly reduced. You understand? So that means if you want to do what thou doest, you want to do quickly. You understand? So the purpose must be in light of time. Don't just have this airy-fairy thing that you cannot fulfill in your lifetime. Of course, sometimes God can give you a decision like Abraham that is eternal. Most of the things that we're going to do are going to be eternal anyway. But the things that we will need to engage will be in time. So it's important to know the time element. All of these things we can break. So purpose is God's will and plan for your marriage as it relates to the kingdom. Purpose is not your hobby. It's not your passion. I just like flowers. So maybe we should have a horticultural garden. No. You understand? So you must find out the fact that you express that as a passion means there may be an innate gift for nature, but there must be something that connects to the kingdom. There must be.
That's right.
So in time, living our purpose in the right season and knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and ensuring the right outputs are coming out at the right time. Another way to say that is moving prophetically and continuously synchronizing with God's times and plans.
That's right. Absolutely.
That condensed milk shot. Spiritual components required for oneness or synergy. Like all of these are very high level. Like I said, what I expect is we have a conversation, we believe it, we practice it, and hopefully we become like distributors. So of course we have this wider goal of spiritual marriages. I'm hoping it becomes a storm. I already discussed with people, done this in Dallas and Canada once, and engaging some families also in Dallas. I'm hoping I won't have to be the one who have to go again. Once we have so many wonderful families who understand the rema of the word. Do you understand? So the idea is to think about these things, break it down, practice it. Of course, we can always still have our webinar sessions and break it down further. But the idea is to spread the knowledge. So spiritual components required for oneness or synergy. Unity, knowledge, because all of you guys are students of the word. I don't need to break all of these things down for you. Unity, you know what that means? It means that we are decided, because unity doesn't happen without decision, to agree, on certain key areas that describes who we are, why we're here, what we're here to do, and how we're going to do it. That's what unity means. It's a decision. It's not a feeling. So you don't have to have a good feeling to be united. You just have to have a common purpose. They agree about it. Does it make sense? So you notice I'm not talking about the feeling and emotion thing, because what that does is it just going to compromise the home. It will have its place when marriage is built upon godly foundations. The emotions will find its expression because it will be sanctified. So unity is very important. You must practice unity actively, and there are ways to work around that. If this helps, I often say that constant conversations are to build agreements, agreements are to build unity, and unity helps us to birth purpose. So if you write that down, that's free of charge. You probably know it. Conversate to come into agreement. You do not have to agree about everything, but you can discuss everything and have a mind to agree on important things. You understand? You must be able to separate, okay, the fundamental things you must agree on. The non-fundamental things I don't need agreement. I just need that to just allow the other person. Unity is very important. The knowledge is important, not feelings. Many marriages are smashed on the reefs of feelings and emotions. Knowledge. Someone say knowledge.
Knowledge.
Add to your faith, emotions. Emotions. And did you say back talk at make any room for emotions? In fact, I said don't give any room. But that's what we celebrate. May God forgive us in the body of Christ. So I'm not saying it has no place, but I'm saying in its right order. First, the kingdom, every other thing. But not first emotions, how I feel. How I think. What mommy did, what daddy did. No. So knowledge is important. You need to know why, what, how, if, when. And the knowledge is available. There's the Bible, there are people who can always help us. Wisdom, know-how, understanding, submission, prophecy, and vision. All these things are some of the components I think we'll need. But like I said, when we have the session to discuss, we can go deeper. Are you enjoying this? Should I slow down? Okay.
You have 25 minutes.
5?
25.
More. Oh, you're generous. Thank you. You're getting nicer to me. Money just to be. For example, the Godhead, Jesus and his place, Adam and Eve, Priscilla and Aquila. And I just put this there just to replace with us in your thoughts. Functional relational synergy. In the Godhead, they relate and they function. It's not just a airy-fairy, we sit and have coffee in the evening relationship. It's very purposeful. They define roles and they submit to one another in their different roles, to produce outputs, to produce outcomes and Godhead. And Jesus and his ecclesia shows you how vital that synergy is. If you see the world the way it is, it's not because the darkness is so powerful, it's because the ecclesia is misbehaving. Do you understand? It's not as in there's enough power to transform the world right now. The problem is the ecclesia is sleeping. The ecclesia is deceived, dancing with the devil, like Eve, trying to eat the apple and become wise. Like God. Do you understand? So we just need to wake up. Once we achieve that synergy, we'll see glory. Okay? I'll share with you briefly what the Lord taught me about the limbs coming together, so that you understand how I'm thinking. That when you want to attach two limbs together, so let's say someone got chopped off, you want to reattach it, it's possible. There's an order in which things are brought together. You don't just put super glue and stick it on. So first you have to clean the wound, isn't it? It has to be sterile. Okay? So that you can interpret that as holiness, you can interpret it as sanctification, whatever you want to, but the idea is it is free from contaminants, external contaminants. So that tells you something about how the state of the marriage should be if it's going to work. There are certain things that should not be in between. There must be a sanctification process, that is sanctifying your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, your appetites. You understand? Your perception of success, your perception of value must be sanctified. Otherwise, if you join together, you will develop infection, pus will set in, and that thing will die. They call it sepsis. Thank you. So, for the first thing you connect is the blood vessels. Why is that important? Blood vessels talk about heart. That takes communication to the heart, isn't it? So that means in order for a marriage to work, you must connect to the heart of God. You must be a marriage that is connected to the heartbeats of the Father. God said of David, he's a man after my own heart. So if it's going to work, if you don't connect to God's heart and purposes, you are set for failure. What happens to a limb that is not connected to the heart? It's going to die. That's where the life flows from. Then the next things you want to connect are the nerves. What does the nerves connect to? Brain. So that means there must be intelligence. The mind of God must be flowing. There must be a connection to the mind of God, because that's what's going to determine what that limb does, whether it moves up or down. A lot of times when they first join is the nerves for the gross motor functions, the big movements. And then the bone is connected. What do bones speak of? Value systems must be aligned. Value. Bone speaks of structure, what your life is built on, the value systems. What do both of you value? You must align it. Does that make sense? Before they begin to join the ligaments and the tendons, the bone must be aligned, isn't it? But of course, we are assuming the bones are mature. It's not one little child's bone now being put on Arnold Schwarzenegger's body. What did you look like? So, so all of those things are important. So, and then when the Lord was explaining this to me, was showing me that, so all the things are in sequence and in particular order for a particular reason. And then you join the flesh. Now, you know what the flesh is? That's actually muscle. Most of the flesh is muscle, except if you are eating too much and you have fat. It's supposed to be muscle. And what does muscle speak of? Potential. You are joining the potentials of the two couples together. So, but in many homes, the potential is what actually drives them apart. It's what the wife can do or what the man can do is what causes the conflict. Instead of come to a place where they join together, they don't. And then when you join all that together, you join the skin. And that's what that got me, because I said to God, skin. So what does the skin mean? And the Lord had me pause. It paused, for effect. God likes to just demonstrate effect with the sun. He just paused and I'm thinking, okay, God, just tell me. He said the skin is the glory. I said, no. There's nothing glorious about skin. Is it not skin? You see it every day. And it says, have you tried looking at someone without skin? He said, what would you do? I said, you run. Imagine no skin, you just see the eyeballs, eyes in the socket. He said, so the skin is what makes you look good. That's why people want to shake you because you have skin on top of you. He said, that's what the glory looks like when there has been a good joining of internal parts. That no surgeon closes the skin until it's finished the surgery. And if you join the skin with an angular bone, you have an angular looking body. You should have a deformed body. You see what I mean? So it's very important what happens in internal systems, and God doesn't often cover it with glory until it looks like what it's supposed to look on the inside.
Absolutely.
Are you with me? So that's why we don't see the glory of God on the ecclesia, because we are not perfectly joined together yet. We're not seeing the glory of God in the marriages because we're not perfectly joined together in the same spirit, the same mind. I see the idea. So all this thing is how God expects the creation to take shape, is by working this principle.